We're going to kick it off with Diane's question. She says, I'm wondering if I can stop buying into my term life insurance. I've only contributed 3 years, but I'm 65 and healthy. My 4 adult kids are independent, so there's no dependents. And I aggressively save and invest. And I thought this was interesting because we always talk about how life insurance is important in most cases,
Absolutely.
right? But what do you think about this question?
No, this is so great, Diane, and I love the way that you framed it because it already tells me you're a financial mutant that kind of gets it. So when we think about life insurance at its basest level, you have to say, okay, what's the purpose of it? Why do we have life insurance? Well, it's so that if we were to die today, there are other human beings that are dependent upon us. Maybe it's spouses, maybe it's children, maybe it's family members, whatever the case may be, someone else is dependent upon my income. And if I were to pass away today, either my income goes away and they don't have money coming in, or I don't have enough assets yet built up to provide for the people that depend on me. So Diane, you said, hey, I'm 65. All of my children are grown. I'm continuing to save. The question that I would ask is, okay, if you were to, get hit by the proverbial bus tomorrow, what would the implications of that be? Okay, well, my adult children would inherit this, and my mortgage would be paid off by this, or they'd sell the house. And you need to walk through, are there enough resources there available to provide for the things that you would want to happen when you're no longer here? Or is there a shortfall? And if there's a shortfall, one of the best, easiest ways to make up for that shortfall is through insurance, right? That's the way we do it. Now, Brian, I think it's interesting. Diane is 65, right? And she said she has adult children. But a lot of times when people, listen to these questions, like, hey, I have the same question as Diane, but I'm not 65. I'm not at the end of the journey. So when I think about life insurance and how much I should buy and when I should get rid of it, how do I think through that? What are the things that I ought to, calculate or run numbers on to figure out, do I have enough or do I not need it anymore at all?
Yeah, I mean, the big things Bo's hitting on is kind of the timing. What I love about term insurance is you can stack it. I know in my own personal life that, like, when my first child was born, I bought a life insurance policy. My second child was born, I bought another term life insurance. I even reevaluated because what was going on at the time, I don't know if it's still the case, but the tables were shifting. That even though I had gotten older, it was cheaper to buy insurance. So you ought to, even if you're buying more insurance, you could go check your old one. But what I liked is that each time I reset, I would go 20 years because that's how long I felt like for the kids. So as kids were like graduating college and other things, maybe you need to do 25 or 30 years because I have bought a 30-year term policy before. Is that you're hoping that you can, if you ladder them essentially, that as they fall off for the needs, that you can walk away at some point. And that's why I'm used to this question. Diane threw me for a loop a little bit. For a lot of people, when we talk about the timing of when products when you buy term insurance, a lot of people write this question in when they're on year 17 of a 20-year term. I'm unsure of, Diane's only 3 years into this thing, so that means she was sold this at 72. So it makes me wonder, was she sold a product where she was already close to financial independence and the need was less than it should have been? Because that happens all the time. But I would encourage Diane, because I want to make sure I answer her question. First, the annual cost of this thing, because I imagine if you bought insurance at 62, 62, it's probably got a pretty big premium. So that's going to be something that's probably squeezing your cash flow. If you don't need the insurance, the easy answer is say, yeah, just don't renew it. But however, I want to caution you. There's a reason you see all these late night commercials where people will say, hey, if you have any existing insurance and you no longer need it, don't just surrender it because there might be some market value to it. I think, the easy answer is to get rid of it, but getting rid of it might still require a little bit of research to see if there's somebody you're going to sell off the policy to or something, because there might be some market value, because if you have a long term and you're older, there's somebody that might be willing to play some crazy game to pay you for that value.
Or even someone like in your situation, Brian, you said when your first child was born, you bought a 20-year policy. Now that child is now off to college, and that you probably didn't just go cancel that policy as soon as you probably let it go 2 terms. So there's nothing wrong with, if you do have a little bit of meat left in the bone, continuing to pay the policies if the cost is justifiable.
Exactly. It all comes back to the annual cost. Like my policies are less than $1,000 a month. So even though I'm financially independent now and don't need the term, I'm not canceling any of them. I'm just letting them reach to the end of their level term period, and then that's when I'm canceling them, because I feel like there is some value. I'm playing an arbitrage situation, whereas if my payments are less than $1,000 for millions of dollars of coverage, I couldn't go buy that insurance right now. So it makes sense for me to keep it, finish out the term. But for somebody like Diane, who was sold this policy at 62, I think the annual cost is going to be pretty steep.
Yeah.
But I don't want her to let it go without at least doing some due diligence to make sure there's not a market value in it.
It's great.